Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of the Pittsburgh Steelers Show on your SteelerFury.com podcast. I'm your host, Accidental Zen on Twitter, Bradshaw to Ben on SteelerFury.com, and Will Massasak in real life. And unfortunately, real life right now is a series of miserable events that have included three, not one, not two, but three Pittsburgh Steelers losses in a row. And we've got a couple of cohorts here to talk about it. I know that they're going to be all like pie in the sky, Pollyanna about it, but, so I've got to bring them in anyway just to see what happens. First, from the state of South Carolina, which yesterday had its first bowl game ever. He's FC, also known as Dom. He's with us. How are you, sir?
I did not attend the Myrtle Beach Bowl. I am good, sir. How are you?
Did you happen to catch the two local guys who tweet stormed their way into being sideline reporters?
I did. I thought it was beautiful.
Those guys
Marty Smith and the other guy calling the game were beauties too. So
there you go. Yeah, I thought that was a nice touch, actually. Pretty good. And also with us from Suburban Zone 22 in the very sad Pittsburgh metropolitan area. His name is Seal Perch. He's with us. How are you, sir?
Well, I'm all hopped up on the figgy pudding.
All right. True or false? Have you actually ever had, yes or no, you ever had figgy pudding in your entire life?
No, but it's like a yearly thing here where every year I say, damn it, I want to try that just to, figure out what the hell it is. We looked it up online one time, and the list of ingredients was like as long as your arm. It was a bunch of like random stuff that you don't have in the house. So I've never actually made it. Someday before I die, I will have the figgy pudding.
Do you know? Have you ever seen Heinz spotted dick in a can?
Yeah, I have seen that.
See, so I'm not making it up. That's what you need to make figgy pudding.
No, that's not one of the ingredients.
Well, it's pudding. Spotted dick is pudding in a can. And it's English.
I thought it was like spam, like meat.
Sort of. It's like meat. Yeah, exactly. Well, gentlemen, you may or may not know this. So what's that, Perch?
I was going to say we're already giving more effort on this podcast than the Steelers did the entire last game.
Well, yeah, but we did start on time instead of like near the second half of the show. We could pick it up for the second half. You guys may or may not know this, but today is Festivus as we record this. It's perfectly timed. I'm not sure. I have a Festivus poll. I don't know if you can see it. Here's my Festivus poll. Might have to bring it closer so it can be lit. I have a Festivus poll for on screen. You can't see it. It's dark. I have a Festivus poll. I had my Festivus dinner earlier, and now I'm counting on you guys for a few things. We're going to start with not the obvious one, the feats of strength. We're going to start with airing of grievances because I got some things to say about you guys, and here we are. I don't know. Do I need to go first? I'll go first. We're trying to mix it up a little bit. I'll go first. I'm just going to say about the game that there isn't a bigger Ben Roethlisberger supporter that's ever lived probably than I am. I mean, in terms of at least public-facing Ben Roethlisberger supporters, I'm, there may be some as close to where I am, but I don't know if there's anybody more that defends him any better. That first half was like I described it, I think, when I wrote it, as if his soul left his body just before the first snap of the game. It was like he was inhabited by the invasion of the body snatchers somewhere just before kickoff. And I mean, there's a lot of, you can come up with explanations or reasons or anything else. And it could be that there's plenty of stuff that wasn't his fault. I'm sure there was. But my grievance is just, when things are going bad and it's spiraling out of control, what the pilot of the plane has to do is to be the one to calm and recenter and figure out how to get it the wings level again. And yeah, that's the coach's job to do that and so on and so forth. But But Ben is the veteran and the leader of this team, and yes, he righted his own ship a little bit and looked reasonably good in the second half, but you just can't let it go on that long in a game where basically if Ben just plays average football in that game in the first half, there's no chance that the Steelers lose. That's my first grievance. I'll go to UFC for number 2. Air some grievances for us.
Oh, boy, don't even get me started. I will start with the offensive line play or lack thereof. Boy, I would love to hammer Ben. I'd love to hammer Benny Snell. I'd love to hammer Juju for his pregame dance. Didn't really have much to do with anything, his appearances. But, boy, Billy, Chalks, Pouncey, Howerman. So 2 names that you haven't heard yet are DeCastro, who, if you watch the game film, probably was the best of the bunch, and Darwin Gray, who didn't play nearly enough, in my opinion, came in for Hawksman at times, wasn't too shabby. Other than that, those 3 guys should be embarrassed. They should apologize to Ben. It was a very, very bad performance, probably as bad of a performance by an offensive line from the Pittsburgh Steelers that I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, this is right up there with that Philly game where the Eagles in I don't know, Perch, was that 2008 or 2005 or both? I think it must have been 2008, I think. Yeah, where the big thing they did in that game was similar to what Cincinnati did in this game, which was they would show pressure coming from one place, drop those guys, and bring someone else. And so the offense, it was all about the offensive line having to communicate and switch at the snap with protections. And a couple of times they missed it altogether. A couple of times they got it, but they got to it so late that the player still got pressure on the quarterback, still got a hit. And then other times they did manage to communicate and do it right. But that puts a lot of stress on an offensive line who's missing. Trying to play with a new player, and so on and so forth. Probably something, game within the game aspect of it. And I agree with you that I thought Derwin Gray played well. I have a note on him later, but it's Perch's chance to air his grievances.
Organizational failure is what I'm going to say. How many years ago was it we heard Mr. Rooney come out and talk about how we've got to run the football better? What the hell have they ever done to fix it? If you look at the stats right now between total yards, yards per game, and yards per carry, the Steelers are the worst run offense in the NFL. The Pittsburgh Steelers can't run the ball at all, which makes your aging quarterback have to do everything. I keep thinking, I've compared Ben with John Elway a lot throughout his career. I think that very similar styles, similar play, similar career arc, that sort of a thing. How did Elway win his 2 Super Bowls after losing 3 badly early in the career? A dominant run game and a really good defense.
Yeah.
How did popcorn arm Peyton Manning win his 2nd Super Bowl? Dominant defense and a pretty decent run game, and he didn't have to do a whole lot otherwise. That's where the Steelers need to be right now. Not dead last in the league at running the ball. And what has Mike Tomlin ever brought to the offense? What has he ever been able to bring to the offense? I mean, from the offensive coordinators that he's had that's been come and gone, and between Bruce Arians being retired and Todd Haley being hired by the Rooneys more or less, and then fired, and then who did we get after that? Basically promoted guys from within. They've never actually gone outside the building because I think they're too afraid to change the offense on Ben, or he's had too much say, or wanted to have somebody he was comfortable with to really, bring some more modern concepts to the offense. They're in a position now that the deck is so weak they can't even promote from within to put somebody else call the plays. I mean, that's, to me, it's like, at least let Matt Canada try and call plays. And what the hell? What could it hurt at this point?
Yeah, got nothing to lose except for if you have Matt Canada call plays, then you are guaranteeing that Brady's out of the building. So
well. That, to me, that would have been the move this week. Be like, hey, Fitchner's got to go. He's gone. Canada's the offensive coordinator. Ben's comfortable with him. He's here. let him call plays the next couple of weeks and make a decision after the year whether you blow the whole thing up and get a new offense completely, or hey, maybe promote him. But it's just been such a massive failure. The stable running backs they have are awful. Their commitment to the running game is awful. To spend all that money on Derek Watt, and how many plays the entire year has he actually been out there as a lead blocker? I mean, it's got to be minuscule.
Yeah, but how many plays where he's been the lead blocker has he actually blocked the guy? That's the problem. His percentage of actually blocking the guy when he's been in there has been hideous.
Even with that, though, I mean, he's probably just rusty.
I guess he blocks like Eric Ebron now. That's sort of a problem.
Yeah,
we're still grieving. That's the thing about grievances. They pair well with grieving. I'm just going to say, I don't know. I think it's easy to blame Ben as I did in the first part, but he's certainly not the only culprit. But changing the offense, it's like, Mike Tomlin. Nobody ever says, what does Sean Payne ever do for the defense? It's like that's not really, or Andy Reid, like that isn't really what they do. Andy Reid sits on the bench next to his quarterback and talks plays and what he's seeing and whatever, while the defense is on the field. That's about how involved he is. And I think the problem with the Steelers with this kind of thing is that, as I always say, is that they make these decisions as an organization. Their decisions about what the plan is and who's going to run the offense and what kind of offense they're going to run. I think, they of course they take input from what the head coach wants and what the quarterback wants and what everybody wants, but I think they decide these things together, and that's why it's really hard to make changes, because there isn't just some person to come in and say, nope, that's it, this guy's fired. After that performance, he's out of here. If you look back at the history of their team, it's been, they never fire a guy or don't renew him ahead of the curve. They're never like, we anticipated this guy was going to be a problem, and so we get rid of him. They don't get rid of him until it's a serious problem. Anyway, that's my rant against the organization and the situation. FC, I'm sure you got more. How about a defense that gave up? In the beginning of the game, sure, they were put back into a corner with some turnovers, at least two of the scoring drives in the first half. But in the second half, they forgot how to cover the quarterback on these quarterback option plays, and that touchdown was a killer. That was maybe the difference in the game, because there was so much momentum to be had, and you could just feel the whole game sliding away back to normalcy. And when the defense gave up that long drive, and then particularly the 2 or 3 runs to the quarterback, to Ryan Finley, I felt that was, when you're coming back from 17 down, you have to be perfect. You cannot make mistakes like that. More grievances for you. I'm done grieving for now.
You have a rookie that overran a play. I'm not going to really throw Highsmith as much under the bus as I'm going to throw TJ Watt, defensive MVP candidate, under the bus for continuously overrunning. Keith Butler can't come out there and say, don't over pursue, keep your rush lanes. Don't over pursue, keep your rush lanes. And if they do, Ryan Finley is not Lamar Jackson out there, but he looked like Terrell Pryor versus the Steelers. This isn't the first time this happened. I don't think it's a scheme thing. I think it's a player thing. I think it's a discipline thing. Players got to make plays. So to the Ryan Finley issue, we got badly outcoached by 3 very young coaches. I think Bill Callahan's son is the offensive coordinator for the Cincinnati Bengals, who does not call plays. I think he just has that title. If we do move on from Fitchner, Ben's going to have absolutely no say in who my next coordinator is, because he's got, a year left? That might be a place I might look. And I pray that maybe his daddy will come along, because his father's still the best offensive line coach in the NFL.
Sure.
There is definitely offensive issues, and I think Perch made fantastic points. I agree wholeheartedly, especially just with the incestuous nature of our offense over the last 10, 12 years. You know, I'm BA to Haley to just Ben's caddies. I hate to say it, but it's the truth. Defensively, you know, so many goddamn injuries. And I know that's an excuse, but so many injuries, so many games, so much. Same excuse to be made for the offensive line, but it's just, it wasn't a scheme thing. It was a player thing. Carl Lawson kicked fouling away with his ass. You know, pretty much whoever they put against O'Keefer, it wasn't just like the Eagles in 2008, they rolled us with scheme. This wasn't a scheme. This was one-on-one matchups, and this was Steelers players, you know, tucking their tail or physically not being able to get it done anymore.
Yeah, and that's without Geno Atkins and Carlos Dunlap. Imagine.
Fact.
But first, let me ask you this question to get you started. You know, how does our coverage linebacker end up as the middle linebacker run defender in run situations, and our run defender inside linebacker on a critical play is covering, of all people, Gio Bernard on an angle route by the goal line? It's like, I don't know how you let yourself get rolled into that. Like, people want to complain about linebackers covering wide receivers in base defense. That's just in zone defense, that's the kind of thing that's going to happen sometimes. But to have the inside, your weak side linebacker end up trying to, be in the middle on a run play and getting rolled by offensive linemen, that to me is like on a play where they weren't hurrying, they weren't rushing, they just ended up out of position.
Yeah, I just have a real hard time bitching about the defense this week for the simple fact that you're down, your top three inside linebackers. One of your two starting outside linebackers is gone. And the defense was on the field the entire game. The Steelers, they kept showing the stat. It was like 6 of the first 7 drives we went 3 and out on offense. Our defense kept getting stops until they had 3 turnovers on our own end. I mean, your defense is only, going to be able to do so much out there. They're already thin as it is. That drive in the second half was mostly Ryan Finley with his legs. And like Tomlin said after the game, it was a bunch of stuff that Cincinnati didn't have on tape before. Tip your hat to their coaches for out coaching us because they put wrinkles in that we weren't prepared for. But it just seems like Tomlin has one of those games. If the Steelers are ever 10-point favorites on the road against a bad team, 90% chance they're going to lose flat out. I mean, it's just, it happens over and over and over again.
I mean, they haven't lost that many of those games compared to perception, but in terms of making them into a game and having it be like a heart attack kind of a game against a bad team on the road, like that I agree with.
The 10-point favorite thing was the key to what he said. I think the Steelers are less than 12% cover rate over the last 40-some-odd road games, whatever.
Yep.
7 points or greater favorite.
Yeah, anytime they're double digit favorites on the road, I mean, it's either they squeak out a 3-point game at the end or they lose it. I mean, it's consistent.
Yeah, I mean, it isn't. I guess what I'm saying is, yes, I totally agree with your point from the standpoint of they've run into some major problems with that over the years. I just want to say though, it's not. The Steelers are not the only team that do that. Not only did the Rams just do it this weekend, but and looking back over the course of since Tomlin has been in the league, he has the second or third best record in that situation. So it's a situation. I guess it's just hard for teams to carry that sometimes. It's just like I think more than anything, it has some of that, not all of it, but some of it has more to do with the team that's the underdog. Basically for Cincinnati, it's their Super Bowl. They maybe didn't have as much preparation, energy, and attention for anything this year compared to this game. I mean, I just felt like they saw the Steelers reeling a little bit. And
that's a bullshit excuse.
Not an excuse. I'm not making an excuse for them. Man, it was a horrendous game that they played. I'm just saying I get that from Cincinnati's standpoint.
That should have been the Steelers Super Bowl too. You lost 2 games in a row in embarrassing fashion, and you're basically fighting for, I guess the bye week was still in play. It's not anymore, but at least keeping the 2 seed. All the talk all week about how we got to go out and prove it. I mean, the Steelers needed to be as woke as they possibly could for that game. This isn't one that just sneaks up on you when you got a 3-game lead in the division. And I mean, the division lead is evaporating. There was no excuse for Cincinnati that be their Super Bowl. It should have been the Steelers too. I mean, there was no reason for that to be sneak up on you sort of a game.
No, you make a good point, and you're entitled to your grievances tonight. I don't know. I forget where we are. FC, what do we do? It's like, do we really want to like bitch about the same? I feel like, not this year, but there was a time there where we just ended up before the Steelers went on that sort of long winning streak I don't know, was that 2017 going into 18 where they had the long winning streak at the end of the year? They basically won. They went like 14-2 for a 16-game stretch or something. And before that, for about 5 years on this show, we basically bitched about the same things every week. And they were legit bitches, and they addressed some of them eventually, and some of them worked out. But it's like I find this year's following the Steelers this year to have been exhausting. I think some of it was that they were so good earlier in the year, and it's just like this tension of keeping up that. Can you keep up that pace? Can you keep up that pace? And then things start to go south, and then you're like, what's wrong? Let's try to fix what's wrong. I mean, I wonder if I'm exhausted by it emotionally, mentally, or maybe they're just exhausted by it, and that's just all. It's just a sad story that they're, they let the pressures of this season and all the schedule bullshit and the way 2020 has gone and so on and so forth. They just let it get to them to the point where their season is in jeopardy. I mean, do you think there's any legitimacy to kind of just like they're worn out as being part of the reason that they're playing absolutely horrendous football?
No, and here's why. They get paid unbelievable amounts of money to work 5 months out of the year. Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, with workouts, rehab, yeah, you're getting paid, but you're really not working. You're maintaining. So, no, that will not ever work for me. What I think that most teams that have been reeling, that have turned it around, 2005 Steelers, 2006 Giants, both teams won Super Bowls. Might be 2008 Giants. Giants team that won it is a 16 as well. They simplified things on both sides of the ball, and they caught magic in a ball. And honestly, I don't know how much more they can simplify things on defense, but they're going to get some troops back. You're going to get Vince Williams back, and no matter what anyone says, he's a cog in the Steelers machine. He was something that's been missing, and we've lost 3 games. 2 of them have been without Vince Williams. Actually, 2 games have been without Vince Williams. When we get Spillane back, that'll be another person coming back. The answers offensively, I believe, is to simplify things, but not necessarily the way you're thinking of. The Steelers have some very convoluted, complex, unbelievably stupid blocking schemes offensively in the run game and the pass. And sometimes it's just best to simplify things and let big men be physical. And if my double teams cannot get movement at the line of scrimmage, then it's time for someone to go to the bench until I find someone that can. And if I can't, I'm not going to win games this season. I'm going to accept that. And I'm going to change pieces in the offseason. If that's Maurice Pouncey, no, you don't have a choice. You're done here in Pittsburgh. Thank you for your service. Your play is not above the line. And that can go for anyone. I thought David DeCastro played one of his better games against the Bengals, and that's going to be shocking. If you go look, he's pretty much the only player that's not a fucking turnstile. And he's the only person that is emotionally invested in that game to the point of blocking to the echo of the whistle, hustling, finding someone to hit, and staying with them. It was an absolute horrible game for our two tackles. And the reason I think it was absolutely horrible is they were asked to do things that they physically can't do. And when shit starts rolling downhill, it really can pick up speed. And one bad thing can turn into two, and two into four, and four into eight, and your offense is fucked. And that's what I believe is happening, and I think that they can. It's not going to be a simple fix, but sometimes the most obvious thing is to correct them. And I think they should simplify things across the offensive line and just go with the basic, simple, big-on-big blocking schemes, which every one of them have done in their life because it's the most basic, simple thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with that is, Perch, the predictability of the Steelers' offense is back to being at near an all-time low. I mean, of course, I watch a lot of Steelers football, but I was calling out plays. You're probably like me. There were a couple that, the third down, the 3rd and 1 to Benny Snell was like a telegraph play. The first time that Chase Claypool came in motion, I'm like, he's getting it on the jet sweep. It's like he hasn't done it the whole game, and now they're going to run him across. Of course, he's going to get the ball. It just feels like if you simplify things to a point, are they good enough to just line up and run the ball down Indianapolis's throat?
No, probably not, but they're not committed to it either. Like even this week, they decided, hey, we got to throw in some play action passing. They don't come out and establish a run first, or at least a commitment to a run. They do it on the first fucking play of the game, and the guy was open and Ben underthrows him, whatever. But it's just, you've got to actually commit to it. At one point in that game, they had thrown 12 passes and had 2 runs at the beginning of the game. And against Cincinnati, who's not a good run defense, week after they said, we really got to start committing to the run. We got to establish the run this week. And Benny Snell, I mean, you saw he ended up having pretty good success in the game overall. He just didn't get a lot of opportunities the first, 3 or 4 drives. Like Tomlin always says, well, we have to make first downs in order to throw the ball deep or run the ball. It's ridiculous. But, about halfway through the season, I kind of pointed out on this podcast, boy, Ben really telegraphs when they're running the ball. He's done it for years, but he leans way over his front feet where he does it. If he's passing, he's more vertical and looking. And if it's going to be a handoff and he's catching that the shotgun snap, you'll see his head is way over his feet leaning forward. And it holds true. I can't be the only one who's noticed that. I think that opposing teams have to know it too, where if all of your runs are basically out of a shotgun snap and the quarterback's telegraphing that he's going to hand the ball off, it'll make it pretty tough to run. Aside from the fact that the O-line doesn't block for shit and the running backs are mediocre slugs. But they've got issues. The deep ball, they've got to try and throw it more often. But, Ben just hasn't been accurate on them.
I think
the intermediate game.
Just quickly, let's talk about the deep ball for a second before we go on to intermediate. I think a lot of the perception about Ben's deep ball is skewed because of his deep ball throws the first play of the game. Like, basically every first series of the game, they've thrown a deep ball down the right sideline, and none of those have looked good. And it's like that's the last thing. At the first image of every game is, oh my God, Ben's deep ball is off. He's thrown some good ones later in games after that. I mean, this week, it just nothing good happened on any ball of any length until the end of the first half. But my point, Perch, was, do you think part of the strategy is like they're just trying to get him loose in the beginning of games? Could it be that they're like airing it out early in the game just to see where his arm is at? Like that's
No, I think it's 100% that, hey, we're going to show you early in the game that we can throw it deep, or we're going to attempt to throw it deep, so you don't sit on our 2-yard routes that we're going to throw 90% of the rest of the game. That's what it is. But I think Ben's completing like 10 or 12% of his deep passes this year. I mean, it's awful.
Yeah.
What was he in the last game? He was like 1 for 15 over 10 yards. I mean, it was at one point in the game. Just it hasn't been good. The intermediate passing game that's been, for whatever reason, written out of the offense. I think that's the thing with Ben, too, is now he's in the rhythm of getting it out and throwing it short, where he's not looking like he used to. He's not looking to make the bigger. They completely neutered the guy. Whether he's done it himself or it's just the offense, if it was the ownership group basically saying, hey, we got to protect this guy, or him now coming back from the injury, having some nerves, or some combination of that plus the offensive coordinator, he's complete. I never thought we'd live to see the day. I thought Ben would go out like Brett Favre, basically, or that big purple bruise that was on Brett Favre's leg when he was like 42 years old, still playing and still taking hits and getting sacked all the time and chucking it deep. I mean, that's how Ben should have gone out. What they're doing to him it's hard to watch.
Yeah, and I think once you get in that rhythm of getting the ball out immediately all the time, you don't even see what's happening past that down the field, because why bother? You're trying to get it out quickly, but Dom, the thing is, his offensive line hasn't given him a chance to even get a clean throw off on an 11-yard curl right at the end of the game. It's like, if you don't even have time to throw an 11-yard curl before the defensive end is literally on your hip, you're not going to make a whole lot of hay in the intermediate game.
You got to block them up. I just want to be clear. I don't want to simplify the offense. I want to simplify the offensive blocking scheme. The offensive line,
gotcha,
pass blocking and run blocking. Offensively, I would prefer to go every game, have been watch film on Monday and Tuesday, Wednesday, and come and give me 15 throws or 15 pass plays that he wants for the game. And then I might add 10 more. That's 25 passing plays. That's pretty heavy. And mix in 20 run plays and then practice those Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. But the thing is Ben has to practice on Wednesday, right, Thursday, Friday. And the receivers have to practice Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Veteran day off is for teams that are 9-0 and 10-0 and lock down their division, not for teams that are pissing away leads. Appearances mean a lot, and Ben being there working Wednesday forces Juju and Johnson, Snell to work. So that's the end of my grievances as well. The offensive line play, I'm praying Dawson is back. He practiced the last 2 days, so I'm figuring he's going to play. And that is definitely going to be an upgrade at left guard. And from there, Chuck's had some decent games. He had a horrible game. Villanueva generally has a shitty game or two every year. Hopefully he got that out of his system, and we'll see.
Yeah. We will in fact see. Just a quick note, you mentioned Derwin Gray earlier. I agree that I thought that he, in the amount of time he played, which was only, I think, 20% of the snaps, if I remember correctly. I thought that he played pretty well, especially for a guy getting his first action after a long time. It's like you kind of felt like that's a guy that was just going to be on the practice squad for a long time and you never – or inactive, and that you were never going to really find out about him. But, for a late-round pick, was he I think he was a 7th, yeah?
Yeah.
So that's pretty good. The Steelers actually, there's been – I wrote in my article, Stosh – 67 from the SteelerFury.com site pointed out that the Steelers picked offensive linemen first and second in their draft class, 2012, I think that was, with DeCastro and Mike Adams. And since then, basically haven't drafted any linemen before, in the first half of the draft, which is part of the reason that they're now in the situation they're in with older guys. But there was a positive out of that, which was, now that Derwin Gray has played, every offensive lineman that they have drafted in any round during that time period has played in the NFL. Actually, I think all of them at one time or another have played well. Even Mike Adams was good for a little while there. And all of them have started a game except for Derwin Gray. Which I think is amazing. I
have another Festivus you just brought up, Festivus grievance I have to air here.
Please.
You brought that name up. Mike Adams, that big fat fucking pot smoker from Ohio State. If you guys remember, back to your way, who Yeah, smoked pot at the combine, failed his drug test, and then proceeds to call the Rooneys and write them a love letter and tell them, hey, I didn't mean to do it. I just really want to be a Steeler. Please draft me. So the guy who, wasn't that great of a draft prospect, I didn't think at the time anyway, who was supposed to be a first-round pick, falls to the late second round. The player the Steelers had looked at, who would have cured a whole lot of problems for them over the years, who they should have taken, probably would have taken had that not happened. You know who I'm thinking of? Levante David. They would have saved the first rounder that they had to spend on Shazier and on Bush, and they would have had a potential Hall of Fame inside linebacker that would have served them well for a lot of years. So Mike Adams, wherever the hell you are in the South Side getting in fights or whatever the hell it is that you do, fuck off.
But yeah, but here's the thing, FC. Mike Adams is the worst offensive lineman they've picked in almost 10 years. I mean, think about that for a second. They've drafted guys, third round, fourth round, fifth round, seventh round, and every one of them has turned into a pretty decent player. I mean, some of that was Mike Munchak maybe developing guys, and add to that B.J. Finney and Villanueva and Filer, guys that were free agents. They've had actually a pretty nice run of offensive lineman development in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, they haven't had any diamonds, so I wouldn't consider Gerald Hawkins a diamond or Gray a diamond. They've had some cubic zirconia.
Hubbard was a diamond in the rough.
He was. He's had a very long, successful career. I think I seen it come to an end.
It looked like he's at the end. Yes, I agree about that.
Yeah, it looked like a bad leg injury. So, I wish him the best. God bless him. But, if you're going to tell me there's a draft that you may want to consider some offensive linemen, and this might be a decent draft to do so because they're saying there might be upwards of 600 prospects, and they may have to extend the draft. So, depending on who you believe, because there's a lot of people, a lot of college kids that are banned because of COVID.
Sure.
Redshirt sophomores start thinking, hey, might be better to be a 6th or 7th round draft pick this year than wait through this and, maybe be a 3rd or 4th.
Yep.
We don't know where this is going. So. And
it could make a case for a guy who is an upperclassman who was going to get lost in the shuffle in this draft would be better off playing in the XFL or, what have you for a year than going back to college and having an uncertainty about what's happening there. I
actually found a future B2B state player.
Yeah?
For you. Yeah, from University of Tulsa. I can't remember his exact name. His last name's Wilson. Oh, boy.
Yeah, I saw some highlights of that game, and I think I know who you're talking about. I don't know the player for sure, but I know.
About this 95-yard touchdown return as an outside linebacker, 6'5", 260. He looks like he's about a 4'8", 4'5" guy.
Yeah,
he's a former gymnast. I'm not being sarcastic. His spark is supposed to be like earth-shattering. They say him and Micah Parsons might absolutely do to the combine what no players have ever done.
There we go. Well, we've had some crazy ones in recent years. I'm sure there'll be some player from Penn State that can't actually play, but who will blow up the combine.
Oh, don't be a prick.
Because that's what they do, Perch.
Don't be a prick.
I want to hire this. I don't really want to draft any players from Penn State, but I do want to have the strength and conditioning coach on my team.
Hey, man, quit slandering the name of Troy Apke, okay?
Troy Apke. Redskins.
Yeah, Troy Apke. Well, now that we've had enough time airing grievances, I think it was an hour of airing grievances, here joining us from the road to make a special appearance on this show, just so we can have someone actually talk about the matchup against your Indianapolis Colts this week for the Pittsburgh Steelers, is from the southern Indiana area, is visiting. I'm going to guess you're visiting your in-laws, or maybe you're visiting your own family. Either way, it's Jeremy Coleman, also known as Smith is Smoking on SteelerFury.com. He's joined us. How are you, sir?
Doing good. Glad to be off the road.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're still in your head. Are you still driving? When I used to do like a 30 hours straight in the car, and you get out of the car and you're just like in bed and you're still driving. It's the worst.
Yeah, this was only a 3-hour trip, so not quite as bad, but I caught some driving rain, which made for like some 40-mile-per-hour driving on, 70-mile-per-hour interstate. So it was pretty rough in patches, but glad to be done with that.
No, man, nobody likes that. Driving rain, holiday travel. Blah. Okay, speaking of that, your Pittsburgh Steelers obviously didn't show very well. And I guess the question I'll ask you about this matchup, I know you're in Indianapolis all the time. And so as a Steelers fan, you basically have to suffer through continuous, you have the Colts thrust at you all day long and all night long and see all their games. So we couldn't go through this show without an opportunity for you to talk about this matchup. Setting aside for a second the state of the Steelers and where they're at, let's talk about Indianapolis's, it's the state of their football team as it relates to this matchup. I don't know where you would like to start, but the scary thing about the defense of Indianapolis to me is their front seven. And even though the Steelers have traditionally had some success throwing the ball against Indianapolis, their front seven's kind of formidable, and our offensive line is slumping right now. How do you see this matchup working?
Yeah, I mean, the defensive line is where it all starts for Indianapolis. You traded their first-round pick for DeForest Buckner, who has played amazing football this year, was a snub for the All-Pro team. That's the major word around Indy right now. No one's happy that he missed the All-Pro recognition this year. But it's DeForest Buckner, Danico Autry, Justin Houston, a guy that we've seen previous years from Kansas City. They all have 7.5 sacks for that team. Right now, they are the guys that are kind of leading that charge. There's a few other guys here and there that chip in, but those are the guys who really get after the quarterback. What really makes the defense special is Matt Eberflus has really come in, in such an awkward circumstance, when he first got hired on by Josh McDaniels, but then Josh McDaniels, of course, never ended up being the head coach in Indianapolis. But he's been here for 2 years now, and they just have a very fast and ferocious defense. They're one of the leading defenses when it comes to tackles for a loss.
Well, it seems like they've faded a little bit, though, recently. That's what I was just saying. I know that for a little while there they were missing Leonard, and that maybe had something to do with it. But even in the last couple of weeks, they gave up 20 points and had a close game against Houston this week. 20 is not a lot, but Houston isn't very good either on offense. How do you see their trending line in terms of their defense?
Yeah, you're definitely right. While the hype around the league would lead you to believe, the Colts have this dominant defense, they at times do give up a lot of points. A lot of that is they play fast and aggressive. They've got Darius Leonard, Bobby Okereke. They're fast guys, but they overrun a lot of plays too. So, sometimes they aren't always in the best spots. There are definitely missed tackles they go through on that defense. They don't have an elite secondary either behind that either. Xavier Rhodes has kind of resurrected his career here this year. He's made it look better, but honestly, their safety play has been a little questionable. They've just got some young guys that are kind of still coming into their own. So the Colts can definitely be scored on. I mean, Houston almost beat them last week, and they were doing it with Deshaun Watson and Kiki Kuti and a few tight ends.
I mean, Rhodes, I think, has done a pretty good job taking away number ones. Mm-hmm. And for that reason, I think that it's an intriguing matchup with Deontay Johnson.
Yeah. So the one I think Deontay Johnson's got a little bit of an edge there just because I think he's quicker than Rhodes. Rhodes at this stage in his career, he's always been that big physical guy at the line. I think if Johnson can get a free release, Rhodes is going to have a tough time keeping up with him. But that's kind of the big matchup, that he's their number one corner. He will probably get tasked with trying to eliminate Deontay Johnson from the passing game.
Perch, let's talk a little bit about this week's matchup because we must. Would you ever thought at the beginning of the year that in discussing this Indianapolis and Pittsburgh matchup that we would say that Phil Rivers looks like the fresher quarterback right now?
Oh boy, no. I mean, even 2 weeks ago, it was, people were saying, he's really, most of the year, he's really slowed down, and is he really going to be coming back another year? And then he's kind of picked his game up at the end of the year around the same time that Ben started falling off. So it just, it's hard to watch and hard to figure. And you kind of hope maybe it's just a short-term trend and that those guys will go back to, Ben will right the ship and Rivers will fall off. Maybe that'll happen this week.
Yeah. FC, what is the situation with Indianapolis's defense? I know that when they were missing their linebacker, they looked extremely mediocre. But with him in the lineup, they've shown pretty well on defense a lot of the year. They just seem to have they've really faded from where they were early in the season. They seem to be like a really terrific defense, but now they've sort of dropped to the point where I guess now their Football Outsiders has them at 6th. They were running 1st or 2nd there for a long time. What's the current situation with their defense? Not that they have to be any good to stop the Steelers' offense right now, but what's your take on facing this defense?
They're a unique front seven. They have a massive front four. Grover Stewart, Brenton Buckner, DeForest Buckner, Denarcio Autry, and they have a 270-pound defensive end, whose name escapes me, that is the small guy of the bunch. Behind that, they have 3 230-pound linebackers. Darius Leonard runs like a deer. He reads, he finds, he hits. He's a good player, very solid player, very good pro player. Their safeties are smallish, but physical. Corners are nothing super special. They live behind that massive front four. They got 3 linebackers that can cover. They really don't want to go to nickel. They will go to nickel, obviously, if you go multiple receiver. They're a team that I think that you try to force into nickel and dime packages. This might be a game where you don't try to out-physical and out-tough the Indianapolis Colts up front. This might be a game where you go into it thinking, you know what, Ben's going to have to throw the ball 50 times. We're going to win this game. And that's how you probably would have to attack and game plan it. If the Steelers had the best offensive line they had in the last 10 years, I believe that would be your best path to success against the Colts defense, is instead of trying to big boy it with them, where you finesse them and go to the strength of your offense, which should be, and I imagine is still, the quarterback and 4 high-quality wide receivers they have. I'm not going to discuss McDonald as well. They don't even look to him offensively. And Ebron broke his fucking hip or something, or he got a back issue. I don't know if he's going to play, but if he does, it'd be really nice if he showed up. I think the key to attacking the Colts defense is not trying to out-muscle them, out-physical them, out-toughen them. It's not a dick measuring contest. I think the path to success is throwing the football.
Yeah, I kind of tend to agree with you. Kimoko Ture, that's the guy maybe you were trying to think of.
Sure.
But you also didn't mention, if you're going to line up and throw it 50 times against them, they have this guy, Justin Houston, who's still pretty good.
We got this guy, Alejandro Villanueva. Whenever he's on his game, shuts down players like Justin Houston.
Yeah, but Justin Houston,
15 pounds lighter, and oh boy.
But these days, Justin Houston is lined up on the other side, though, so he's gonna come to Cukes, Perch, what's your thought on this this matchup of what Indianapolis, what problems they're going to present to this?
DeForest Buckner. I mean, you've seen what our interior offensive line has looked like lately. I mean, that guy's got like 8 sacks. I mean, he's wrecked some games when he's been healthy. The Colts defense has been a lot better than when he's not been healthy. So that's something I'd have a great deal of concern about. On the other side of the ball, and just our offense is freaking JV garbage. We can't score on the Bengals. What are you going to do against a really good defense? So on the other side of the ball, I mean, Rivers still throws the ball with a funny release and, does what he does, but he spreads it out to a lot of people. And I worry about their running backs catching the ball. Naheem Hines is the main one out of the backfield.
Yeah, he's pretty good at that.
I could see them scheming him open or getting him on some of our inside linebackers who none of which can really cover. And we've had Marcus Allen out there, trying his best to play the run. And, I'm not going to rag him either because he was out of position, but teams were running at him last week. Cincinnati was finding where he was, and just for a stretch of the game, just running right at him.
Perch, let me interrupt just for 1 second. On one of the quarterback runs, the quarterback literally got the play call, looked out of the huddle towards the Steelers defense, pointed at Marcus Allen, and then called the play and went back up and ran it. That was the play where they cleared him out of the middle. And it was like he basically looked at Marcus Allen and pointed at him, and then they came back and ran it right where they pointed. I mean, it's like obviously they were targeting him. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, T.Y. Hilton seems like he's lost a step here in the last year. That's their one big play receiver. I don't anticipate him causing a ton of issues for the Steelers. Really, it's just Rivers will throw it around to, a couple different backs, couple different tight ends, 4 different receivers. Can't really lock in and focus on any one guy. I think that our defense should have some pretty good success and be able to sack him a little bit, maybe force him into some ill-advised passes and pick him off. It's just the other side of the ball. I can't see what the Steelers do well, even against an awful defense like Cincinnati, who was down a number of players, to see how they're going to miraculously turn it around this week and put points up on the Colts. Like 20 points, I have a hard time seeing how the Steelers score 20 in this game without defensive or special team scores.
Michael Pittman and Mike Hilton also seems like something that maybe works in the Colts' favor, flipping it over to the other side of the ball.
Yeah, the Colts, I was a big fan of Pittman coming out. He's finally gotten healthy, and that's kind of been a real plus addition for the Colts. He's taken some of the pressure away from T.Y. Hilton. T.Y. Hilton's had a really great month here. I think he's gone 4 or 5 games now with 80 yards and a touchdown, or 80 yards or a touchdown. So he's had a really resurgent December, kind of late November. And it's because Michael Pittman offers something else in the passing game, which I was telling my friends up in Indianapolis all year. That's where the offense was lagging for them, is they needed one more true receiving threat to kind of really start to open up that offense. I think you've started to see that just for the fact that T.Y. Hilton's finally been able to get loose.
I mean, if you watched Phil Rivers at the end of last season, and even at early part of this season, would you have ever thought that he'd be playing at a level that he is right now?
No. That has really surprised me. I told everyone when the Colts first signed Phillip Rivers, he is done. He's trying to go off on a high note. And then right around week 8 or 9, this offense and Phillip Rivers really started hitting their stretch. And I kind of had to walk that back a little bit up here.
Yeah.
He's done a nice job leading that offense against good teams, too. It isn't like they've been playing absolute scrubs or anything. But he's rebounded, and that's something I did not see, because I still remember that game last year where he just had no interest in getting hit by the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. That game, to me, was like, wow, this guy's ready to go off and retire, and he's done a much better job than I anticipated this year.
But you bring up a good point, though, that we didn't talk about elsewhere, and that is the Steelers' pass rush against quarterbacks who are statues are often quite a bit different than what they do against mobile quarterbacks. When they don't have to worry about leaving the door open for the guy, man, they really can get after it. This is the first time we're going to face one of those basically since we lost Bud Dupree. But I still feel like maybe that's a key to this game. How do you feel about that situation?
Yeah, I mean, early in the year when Phillip Rivers was struggling, it was because teams were getting pressure on him right up the middle, forcing him to move off his, get out of rhythm. And that's where he, looked like that quarterback from last year that was just trying to fling the ball to get rid of it. And that's where he's had a lot of his interceptions this year. I definitely think that needs to be part of the game plan, is pressure him up the middle and force him off his point so he doesn't have those rhythm throws that every quarterback craves.
Well, last year the matchup with Quentin Nelson and Cam Hayward was, spotlighted, especially because Hayward, for the first time, really, I think anyone in the NFL had showed some cracks in Quentin Nelson, who most people think is, pretty much infallible. But Hayward got him a couple times, got underneath him a lot, which is something that you don't see necessarily often with guards like that. But it feels like, I'm going to guess this could go either way, because either it could be Cam's just a tough matchup for him and he'll once again have a good day and be confident, or it could be that Nelson has been thinking about this all year and is going to take it to Cam Hayward this week. Which do you think is the more likely scenario?
I don't know. This is almost one of those cases where you would describe an unstoppable force meeting the immovable object. That's the type of warrior these two are going to be going at all game. I mean, Cameron Hayward's been playing really good ball this year. Honestly, from a few of the games I've seen the Colts play this year, Quentin Nelson has not been infallible, like you just said. He's gotten away with some things. He's been called for holding a lot more this year than usual, compared to, his rookie year and then last year. So,
which is amazing considering they barely called holding this year. So.
Right. But I think Cam Hayward can still have reasonable success against Quinn Nelson. I mean, both these guys are all pros for a reason. They're going to be going at it all game long. Hopefully for Pittsburgh's sake, Cam Hayward wins more of those than Quinn Nelson does.
Yeah. So other than the stuff we've briefly talked about here, what else in this matchup do you think is worth noting? Like either individual matchups or just the units, the way that they're playing right now?
The Colts are going to run the ball. That is their true identity on offense. Jonathan Taylor, we all know him. He has really started to take off recently. He had some fumbling issues middle of the year. He's kind of gained the coaching staff's trust back. He's had some really dominant performances the last 2 weeks. Went for over 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, I think, last week. And before they played Houston, had another very good game against Houston. I definitely think that they are going to challenge the Steelers' defense. They need to be able to run the ball so Pittsburgh can't just tee off, on Phillip Rivers when trying to rush the passer. That's going to be a big part of it. Expect a ton of play action. They love to hit Trey Burton, Mo Alley Cox, Jack Doyle on all these play action stuff out of run sets. They've got 3 tight ends that can make plays. I think that's going to be a big part of their game plan, especially when, we're down to our 4th and 5th string inside linebackers that are going to be trying to cover these guys off of play action.
Sure. Well, to me, the key with defending play action is, are they successful in throwing the ball from a 2 tight end set? Because it's a little bit easier if you've got your nickel people in the game already, because they're not focused on stopping the run in the same kind of way, right? But if you're running with multiple tight ends, it makes it difficult. I think that's, if I recall correctly, that's something that Frank Reich likes to do.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that, he took away from his time when he was in Philadelphia. I think he was part of that staff that brought in Dallas Goedert, to back up Zach Ertz initially. And now he's with the Colts. He's brought the same philosophy. Mo Alley Cox was a basketball player at Prairie View, wherever he came out of. He's molded him into a fine tight end. Jack Doyle, the Indianapolis native, I mean, again, good receiving threat, but again, equally dangerous against the run. And then they brought in Trey Burton to really round out that core this year. But they're a very dangerous group. They're the type of guys that will, if they catch you napping, they're going to make you pay for it.
Sure. Yeah, just concerned. It's like if you can get the Steelers into operating into base defense, that's not the strongest place for them right now. I think nickel or dime is actually a better look for them if you're a Steelers fan, because in base you've got, Vince Williams theoretically back this week, but you've always got somebody in that defense. You got 2 guys that haven't been playing all year that are not necessarily the strong points of the defense right now.
Right.
So I guess that's something to look for. I don't know. Give us, your sense of I mean, as much as it feels like the Steelers' stock is down right now over the last 3 weeks, would you say the Colts' stock is, is it rising with the bullet? Is it slightly up? Is it flat? Is it slightly down? Like in terms of the way the seasons go, I find that you get to this time of the year and some teams are just getting it together, and some teams are really rolling, and other teams are fading. What's your sense of where they're at right now?
I'd say they're on a slight rise. I don't think, it's been meteoric. They started off the year a little with some dominant defensive performance against some not great teams. Then they kind of went through a slump of where they played some good teams, kind of didn't live up to expectations. Then I think they got to the level we all expected them to. They played complimentary football. They have a good record now. Again, just slight rise. I wouldn't call it meteoric. I'd say they're trending in the right direction, though, going into the playoffs. They've got some momentum building,
Sure.
with the running game especially starting to take off with Jonathan Taylor. I think that's a huge part of their offense. And then they love to trickle in Naheem Hines right behind him, the do-it-all back from NC State. Boy, I wish our do-it-all back from NC State played like that.
Well, they barely get – he gets like his, 2 obligatory catches or touches per game, and then he's out of the game,
Right.
We don't really roll a quarterback, roll our running backs like that. Hey, FC, now that we've seen almost a season in the NFL for Jonathan Taylor, I will bet that I can guess what observation you've made. That's the critical observation that you're going to point out. I'm going to say that it is he runs super upright, and you're like, it's only a matter of time before he takes a hit that's going to knock him out of the game.
That would be true, but he reminds me of a running back from my youth. They used to wear rec specs. He screams Eric Dickerson to me. And how many big hits did Eric Dickerson take in his way to becoming the 3rd all-time leading rusher in NFL history?
Yeah, not too many.
Jonathan Taylor is 230 pounds. Jonathan Taylor runs a 4.35 40. Jonathan Taylor is not like Derrick Henry. Jonathan Taylor is not like Jerome Bettis. He's a unique back. Running that upright, he really builds speed. I think that the Steelers' key to stopping him is going to be very similar to stopping Derrick Henry. You cannot let him get to the second level. If you get to the second level, you got big problems. He cannot run anybody on the field.
Yeah.
I mean, both offensive line, this is going to be without a doubt the most physical offensive line the Steelers faced all year. I'm not going to say it's the best. It is the most physical. And I think there's going to be a lot of players tested. I think that the Steelers have been humiliated, and you're going to get to find out the character of this team this week. I mean, you really are. If they come over and they show their belly, you can realize for the rest of these podcasts, we're going to have a total of 2 more. We're going to have the Browns and then the playoff loss. That this team, as we know it, is done.
Yeah.
If they don't show their belly, then it becomes real interesting because Tomlin doesn't have a ton of success in the playoffs, and with Cowher, I would have actually say, okay, they turned it around. They're going to be hell on wheels in the playoffs. That may be true. You're going to find out the character of this team. I thought they were going to turn it around against the Bengals, and I thought this was going to be a real interesting matchup. Everything screams that the Colts are going to come into Pittsburgh and embarrass us.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to happen. But that's what it screams.
It's the same as everything screaming Pittsburgh was going to get right last week and blow out the Bengals too. So it's a week-to-week league, somebody told me once. I don't know, Perch, let's flip this around for a second. Any reasons at all, like things you can hang your hat on that you think will be positives for the Steelers in this game?
I think our defense will, we talked about Taylor, I mean, he's a fumbler. He's probably made more earlier in the season than he's had now, but he's fumbled at a lot of key situations. I could see us maybe actually punching a ball out for a change there. I think we'll sack Rivers. I think we'll get Rivers to throw an interception somewhere in the game. Notice I'm on one side of the ball. I don't see anything this offense can hang their hats on unless miraculously they somehow can get the short passing game going really well, like they did some points early in the year. They can't throw it medium, they can't throw it deep, they can't run it. It ain't going to happen this week. The only hope in this game is defensive scores and turnovers, or defense basically pitching the shutout, or somehow, some way, Ben finds his mojo back, or that short passing game. The Colts just haven't watched film for the last 3 or 4 weeks and can't figure out how to shut it down.
Well, one thing about that, I'll throw it to you, UFC, is it did seem like in the second half last week that the Steelers at least pushed it a little bit into the intermediate zone, and the result was that the dump-offs to running backs and to Juju underneath had some space that they haven't had all year, that were a staple of what they did in 2018 and 2017. Do you think there's a possibility that they're at least get some more open looks underneath? Because that to me is, if you want to have a chance at getting the short passing game going, you got to threaten some other stuff. Threaten levels. To me, it seemed like there was like the slightest bit of reason for optimism just because they managed to do a little of that. Do you think that was more of a function of Cincinnati backing off? I really didn't, but maybe you did.
Ben missed throws in the first half, too. He missed open guys. I'm saying ball not delivered. He missed receivers running open. He missed Claypool choice. He missed Deontay Johnson running completely open. Ben got to make those reads, and for Ben to be able to make those reads, he can't be running for his life. The offensive line has to hold up. So the offensive run scheme is terrible. The blocking scheme, the development of the running game, the execution of the running game is terrible. I hate to say this. You got the All-22. You can see there are times where Ben is not reading the defense at all. He's predetermining at the snap, and that ball's coming out in 1.8, 2.1 seconds. We're at the point where that ain't being the Bulldog. You got to let the play develop.
Yeah.
Claypool makes one play on the post in the first half. It can be a completely different game. Ben missed him twice. He missed Deontay Johnson on a double move, running completely free. Did not even throw the ball. We're not going to say shitty throws by Ben. I'm not even talking about that. I'm saying flat out, not reading the coverage, misreading the coverage, missing wide open guys.
Yeah, seeing ghosts. So, that's the thing, Perch. That if you want reason for optimism, it's just that the throws were there. He didn't make them, but it doesn't seem like he's physically incapable of making them. I think you really hit on the thing. It's really about pass protection. If the offensive line gets into, either it gets in the rhythm of pass protection, or they run it well enough with enough commitment that the defense can't just like take off and either go after the passer or try to clog up the passing lanes and put their hands up. It feels like that opens the door for at least some optimism on offense if they can do that. Big if.
Here's what Ben needs to do. This is the only thing that's going to work. All right. Sometime between now and Christmas morning, Mrs. Ben is going to walk up to him with some matching pajamas for the family to wear so she can take a picture and put it on social media. What Ben needs to do is a shot and a beer, hop on his motorcycle, drive as fast as he can to the nearest sorority house, and run through every girl in there, do another shot and a beer, run it back, and then head back to Heinz Field and start practicing his passing. The guy is he's basically playing the opposite of who Ben is, right? He was a high testosterone, wild man running around the city, grabbing as much snooch as he could and just playing like a freaking maniac. That was the Ben we all knew and loved, the guy who looked downfield, the guy who was never afraid to take a hit, the guy that was going to hold the ball too long. He's been completely neutered, 100% completely neutered. He's got to go back to being Ben. Whether that's firing the offensive coordinator or him just coming out and saying, you know what, screw it. If my career's going to end, let me take a big hit and end it the right way. And just this Nancy bullshit that's going on. I can't watch it. I can't watch it. I can't respect it. Ben, go back to being Ben.
Yeah.
For the love of God, Ben, please.
It is very hard to watch. That's for sure. I mean, FC, like Ben's mobility looked fine on the first play when he rolled out. He did something that he doesn't always do. He play action faked and rolled out. His movement looked fine. He didn't look like, that he was uncomfortable with that, even though he, ended up with a terrible throw out of that.
You're 100% right. I like I said, I think a lot of it's still mental. Like, he came into the season without a preseason, having to play. And if you remember that the first half of the first game, he looked shell-shocked and scared and nervous like Ben had never looked before. And it seems like as the season went on, hey, that went away, and he was kind of playing more like Ben, but he was still getting out really quick. And now here in the last when the weather got cold here in the last 3 weeks, I don't know, like mentally he's thinking, well, somebody told me these ligaments might not hold up well, and I got to get rid of it. And he's afraid. He's not stepping into his throws. That first pass should have been a touchdown. If not a touchdown, a 50-yard gain. He didn't step into it, and he left it 7 yards short of where it should have been. I mean, yeah. Washington had 2 steps on that play. But if you go back and look at a few other plays in that game, he's leaning on that back foot, and it's not like somebody's even near him. There's somebody like 3 yards away kind of closing in, and he's not stepping forward and fall. And he never did. We've all seen every snap he's ever taken, preseason, regular season, postseason for 18 years now. Yep. Never did that until now. So it's mental. His knees seem fine. He can still move. There's something going on there mentally. He needs to, like I said, I gave him the solution. We'll see if he does it or not.
Sure. I mean, I could sum it up for you in 3 words. More John Wayne. Right? Remember that famous Tomlin quote where he was like, Ben, no more John Wayne. No more John. In a way, it's like that's what's missing. You need John Wayne to swagger in and say, I'm going to clean up things in this town. I don't know. I mean, I feel like I would rather, for his sake and for the team's sake and for our sake watching it, I would rather that he do that and fail than do what he's doing now and fail. I mean, it's definitely hard to watch, especially when, as you said, it doesn't appear to be, to be physical. I mean, FC, is it overly, naysaying or whatever you want to call it, bedwetting, to say, could it just be that Ben realized that he's done? Because that thing about it being mentally gone.
That's the only thing it can be. If you're saying he's mentally gone, that is what you're saying. And if that's the truth, then you take away the option that Adam Schefter was talking about Ben returning for 2021. You tell Ben, no, actually you're not. You mean too much to this city. You mean too much to me. I got this Super Bowl ring for you. You're done here. Now, if you want to go break it off of my ass elsewhere, I don't think you have it in you anymore.
Yeah.
I don't think that's it.
You say it's time to get on with your life's work, but I guess what I'm saying, though, is the percentage chance you think that this slump that Ben is in right now, which is one thing you can call it, the percentage chance that it's because at some point, like in the Dallas game or wherever it was, that he just decided that he realized that he's done and like he's going to play out the string and go home. Like, do you think that's a possibility?
Honestly, 5%.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's kind of how I feel. It's a long shot, but
and I go that high of 5% is because of what he put on tape. Because Halassinaka broke his fucking nose, and he wanted to get it straight and come scrambling back into the game. Because Luis Castillo looked like he blew out his knee, and 2 weeks later, he's not only leading the team, he's leading the team into the playoffs, through the playoffs, into a Super Bowl.
Sure.
I think that Perch said he should shock, fear, run through the sorority house. Obviously, he was being sarcastic. But I think that Ben needs to find, and you're going to love this. You remember the quarterback from the New Orleans Saints by the name of Bobby Hebert?
Sure.
Bobby Hebert had a famous tattoo that points to And on his tattoo, on his bicep, it said, "Hang it high, let it fly." And Brett Favre would be a perfect example. And would I be shocked if we see some old school Ben this week, despite the coordinator? No. Would it shock me? No. Would it shock me if we turned around the season? No. Because Ben's really, he's done shit like this before. In the gambling terms, they say pulling a stunt, meaning that it's just some bullshit that happened and then it stops happening and they turn shit around. Is this Pittsburgh Steelers, the modern day Roberto Duran of NFL football teams? Wouldn't shock me, because I had been benched. I wanted Mason Rudolph in the game in the first half. I said he was done. I ain't gonna lie.
Look, I'm just saying, if you ever, anybody out there listening to me, if you ever have been in the game and you're longing for Mason Rudolph to come into the game, you need to seek professional help. Okay?
Go to the bathroom, go to the medicine cabinet, get those Valium that you've been saving. It's time to have a handle. And just relax.
Yeah. Oh, my God. Bert, you've been out for a while. I'm sorry. We've been talking about you instead of giving you a chance to talk. You have the floor, my friend.
No, I mean, I think we've covered that and beat that to death. Obviously, I was not being realistic or serious with my advice for Ben. It's just the big picture thing. Is the same thing that
it's already out. Caught there in the motorcycle pile.
Yeah, I mean, theoretically, that's what he should do. But I mean, it just, to me, he's got to go back. He's got to go back to being Ben, and he's got to go back to whether it's the Rooneys, whether it's the offensive coordinator, the head coach, Ben himself. He still has it physically in him to play the way he's always played. And this neuter Ben offense has just gotten so far out of control. And to me, you know what? Win the damn division. You got to win one of the next two games. Why not make it this week? Win this week, shut things down for the week after, and Ben, put your career on the line for 4 playoff games. Remember John Elway diving in the end zone, getting nailed in the end zone, spinning like a helicopter. I mean, that's got to be his mentality. Is, this is your legacy. 3 Super Bowls put you in a very, very small room in the Hall of Fame. I mean, you're up there with top 5, top 6 guys of all time at that point. And that's got to be his motivation. He keeps talking about wanting to win Super Bowls. It's on him. I mean, he's got a good enough defense to do it. The offense is going to come down to what he can make of it.
Sure. Go ahead, FC.
I mean, people say that Ben's after the money. Thanks to our lovely senatorial election here, I live on the border of South Carolina and Georgia, so I get Georgia TV channels. I got to find out that Ben made $32 million this week from a timber deal in Georgia because they were bad-mouthing Kelly Loeffler, and it was part of an attack on her. They drove off the spur. Yes, he made $32 million this week on a timber deal. He owned land in Georgia, and they were bad-mouthing him, and he's like, should I apologize for being a solid businessman?
Well, I would say...
I don't really make too much national news. There was a little blurb in the Tribune Review, but, I mean, I really think that it's horrible to say, but I think Ben has babied himself to get to this point. And I think this is the point where the beard starts coming out for Ben, and it's time. This is where it's the back nine in golf for him, and This is where you make your money.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. And the other thing is, if you go back to being Ben a little bit, that short game that they're the short quick game is gonna be dynamite. Like, in other words, if you be Ben for a while and they get them flustered and run around, then you can have your way with them underneath. That's the sad part. It's like if you just have the underneath passing, it tends to not work very well. But if you get in the rhythm doing other stuff, man, you can do that all day long. Mix it in. Anyway, all right. Well, speaking of mixing in, we should mix in a little bit of later we'll come back with some picks, and after that we're going to discuss some feats of strength for Festivus. But before that, it's time for our illustrious pick segment, brought to us by
Sports and Shit, where you can find tons of Steelers and other NFL team apparel. Brought to you by John Perry, the always fun, we'll call him Washington PAG. And lastly, God, I just love listening to Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. The silky sound of Joe Buck. Oh, they're fantastic.
Well, you're going to get Jim Nance and Tony Romo this week. I can't wait for them to sponsor the show next time, if there is a next time. If they play the way they did in the first half against Cincinnati, against Indianapolis, there may not be another podcast. We're getting very close to the end. Anyway, let's just make a quick run here. Let's see. It's so funny. I did something this week after the Steelers game that I have never done before. I muted on Twitter. I muted the words Pittsburgh Steelers football Ben Roethlisberger, and I realized how boring Twitter is. Like, there's nothing on Twitter if you just mute those 5 words.
How bad must you suck at Twitter to have not been banned from it already?
Yeah.
If you're a real Twitter gangster, you're not on Twitter anymore.
Yeah, it's the thing is, it's the tweets you type out and then delete and not send, Perch. That's the key. Because it feels good to write it out and and then you're like, I shouldn't do that. So,
that's not legal. I'll tell you one other good story. The Ben Roethlisberger account, the Big Ben 7.
Sure.
Oh, I can't remember when it was, but I think it was maybe during his second sexual assault thing, or maybe it was during the Ben's going to retire, the Steelers are going to trade him, whatever the hell it was. But I was defending his honor, mostly just cussing out a bunch of the media people. And I got a private message from the lady who runs that account telling me that I was the best thing on Twitter that week. And I had never tweeted that account directly. She had just seen me on there. So apparently I'm the only one on Twitter who hasn't been banned by that account. And they're actually a fan of mine, or was a fan of mine, until I was finally banned.
I'm sorry, man. You know, the world is probably a better place, and you're probably better off not being on Twitter. So it's really okay. I don't know. Let's talk about the Vikings and Saints for some reason. I don't know. I don't know. Here, I'm going to name. Better yet, I'm going to name some games. Interrupt me when it's a Jeopardy. Interrupt me when you're ready to pick one of these games. The Dolphins and Raiders, 49ers, Cardinals, Atlanta, Kansas City. Actually, we don't have to actually pick the game.
So, well, I'm fun with it. I'll take the Dolphins. I'll take the Chiefs. And who did you say that the Saints are playing?
Saints are playing Minnesota.
I'll take the Saints. They're in my first.
How about you, Birch?
Saints game. I'm taking the Saints.
The Raiders versus the Dolphins. No David Carr for the Raiders.
Yeah, I'm taking. Yeah, I see. I'm just picking who I like, where I want to win. Dolphins. That kind of keeps the Ravens out of the playoffs for at least one more week. Was there another game? You guys went kind of fast there.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm mailing it in for the pick segment right now.
Yeah, give me Chiefs. They'll win by 12 over the Falcons, so they'll cover.
Falcons. I guess I don't think the Chiefs are going to necessarily lose this game, but the Chiefs have been playing not Pittsburgh Steelers level inconsistent football, but the Chiefs have been playing. They've gotten off to some slow starts in the last month or so, and the Falcons made it look close last week a little bit. Go ahead, FC.
Tyreek Hill is doubtful.
What's that?
I said Tyreek Hill is doubtful for the Chiefs.
Yeah, that's not a small thing. It's not like they don't have anybody else to throw it to, but yeah, just Atlanta. I mean, to me, Atlanta's biggest weakness is their pass protection, their offensive line in general, and that isn't really how the Chiefs beat you, with the defensive front. So I don't know. I wish if the game were in Atlanta, I'd give Atlanta a fighting chance. Kansas City's going to win. and cover probably, but it might be a close game for a little while. Don't get your hopes up. Well, I used to say, my wife used to say, every time I watch the Patriots, she'd be like, "You're not imagining that they're going to, you're not getting into this game like you think the Patriots are going to lose, right? You know they're going to win in the end and break your soul." And Kansas City has now become that team with that. If you watch them and you think there's any chance they might lose and you start rooting for it, you just know you're doomed in the end.
Hey, how about this upset? Right, Steelers lose, Jets beat the Browns. Steelers win division because the Jets made it so.
Well, the Jets have nothing to lose by losing. I mean, nothing to lose by winning anymore. I think they got a pretty good shot at that too. But anyway, all right. I know there's not much. Okay, here we go. One game to actually pick. Tennessee at Green Bay. Tennessee is a 3.5-point underdog going to Green Bay. I think this is sort of a referendum on the state of these two teams. I'll start with you, Perch.
Yeah, boy, I just haven't been that high on the Packers all year. I think Tennessee is a better team. I think Tennessee beats them. I'm going to go Titans to win. What's the line? 3.5. So they'll win and cover. Take Titans by field goal.
How about you, FC?
Completely agree with Perch. The reason I agree with Perch is most of the time in these games, I would think Tennessee's going to run the ball with Derrick Henry because Green Bay is really bad against the run recently. And generally teams that run the ball, get stopped, and they end up having to kick a field goal or two, and Aaron Rodgers is magic and he can throw touchdowns. Not this case. I think that the Titans win, and I think they win by more than a field goal. I think they win by 6 points at least. So they'll be the easy cover.
Yeah, I kind of like the Titans for the same reason that it isn't just that they run it. It's like if you get worried about being able to stop the run, they will hit you over the top, or hit you with A.J. Brown. So yeah, I like the Titans' chances. I think in a neutral field game, right this very second, I'm taking the Titans over the Packers. Packers are good this year, but I don't know that is a good matchup for them. All right, that does it for our Around the League picks. Oh, one last thing about Around the League. Speaking of the Packers, FC, I don't know if you noticed, but Robert Tonyan did not make the Pro Bowl. This year is a weird year. First of all, there's not going to be a Pro Bowl. Everybody knows that. So they're going to name this Pro Bowl team, which is almost meaningless. But the thing about that is, in previous years, guys would drop out. They'd be injured. They'd decline to play. Then a new guy would get added, and he would become a Pro Bowler, right? So there'd at least be a shot for more than just the starters to be named Pro Bowlers. But Robert Tonyan did not get named to the Pro Bowl, which seems kind of like not only is it disappointing, it makes us look bad because, FC and Bradshaw to Ben are the two guys that told you Robert Tonyan before he came out was going to be a good player in the NFL. I just wondered if you noticed that.
I noticed that he didn't make it, and it's a publicity contest, and I think one of the main reasons why they're not having it is because Hawaii would still love to have him. Don't let anybody kid you. The NFL really don't want to be paying out bonuses to teams or players that made the Pro Bowl at the tone of 125 players because profits are down.
Yep. No, completely. I don't think they're into it. I don't think anybody's into it, really, and I wonder how long it might last. Anyway, that does it for our Around the League pick segment. And it's time for, that time that comes around, our 5-star matchup. It's a 5-star matchup because the Indianapolis Colts are in it, and they're pretty good. And on paper, strangely enough, the Steelers are 11-3 somehow. Like, imagine if you watched the first half of that game last week, and it was the first you had been like in solitary confinement or on the space shuttle or something, and you hadn't watched any NFL football this year, and you watched the first half of Monday night, and you saw the Pittsburgh Steelers play, and someone said, "What do you think their record is? What would you say their record was?" And you would think they had not won a game, maybe one or two.
You know what I would have thought? How the fuck is Joe Walton still coaching the offense?
Yeah, his name did pop into my head for sure watching that. I was trying to think back to when's the last time that I remember a Steelers offense looking this bad in a game, and that's definitely when it was. Especially with Ben in there. Like last year, yeah, there were times when they looked this bad. All right. So, in the spirit of trying to mix things up a little, I'll go first. I have no idea. I wish it were a game that I could steal Booger McFarland's line because I really, really, really want to, which was the Steelers were going to win. How much? By a lot. They're going to win by a lot. So I really wanted to use that on the show, but yeah, it's like I can't remember a game that was harder to pick for the Steelers. I mean, there have been some that were hard to pick, but this is one that I struggled with all week. I think the only thing you can do in this situation as a prognosticator is to assume that the two teams are going to play more or less the football that they've shown that they can play, rather than the worst or best that they can play, but just kind of like who they are. So I'm discounting a little bit the Steelers' skid, and I'm discounting a little bit Indianapolis's apparent, I mean, they look a little bit more effective on offense than they have been. I will call it – I don't know that we can get the points this high, but I'll call it 24-21 Steelers. Ben has always looked good against Indianapolis, and those kinds of things tend to play out. The Steelers in general have looked pretty good against Indianapolis. So I will take the Steelers 21. I'll hold my nose and pick the Steelers. All right, well, Jeremy, I'll throw it to you. What is your prediction for what will happen in this Steelers-Indianapolis matchup on Sunday afternoon?
It's going to be a battle to the very end. I think the team that has the ball last is going to end up winning this game. I'm going to say the Steelers are going to find a way to win this one. I feel like the skid has to stop somewhere. This is a really good test for the Steelers. The Colts are going to test the Steeler defense in the run game. The Steelers defense can still win against this offense. I know I've said, the running game's starting to take off. We still have a pretty good run defense. Michael Pittman and T.Y. Hilton they don't scare me. They're good players, but they don't scare me when it comes to that. And I think you can put points up on Indy. If Houston can do it, they've got one of the worst offensive lines in the league. I know we don't have a great one right now, but I'd hope
we talk about anybody else's offensive line or offense right now. That is for sure.
Yeah, that might have been a misquote there, but I'd hope we can get something going against these guys. They can be run on. They can be passed on. Ben's got to start somewhere on the redemption tour here from kind of 3 poor outings.
Yeah, let us hope so. I'll go to you now, FC. What do you think happens?
The old head tells me 27-13 Colts. The old heart tells me 27-24 Steelers. I never think about shit. I'm a big fucking dummy. So I'll go with the heart, and I'll pick the Steelers 27-24. The only way that happens is if the offensive line gets Ben time, and Ben decides that he's going to get his balls out of a jar and slap them back in his sack and, be the man that he once was.
Yeah, they're actually in a security box at the bank, I think. Perch, FC picked with his heart. I know you don't have a heart, so I'm going to throw it to you. What is your pick for this game?
Remember the Grinch where his heart grows 3 sizes bigger that day? Remember that episode?
Yeah.
Well, it ain't happening here. Colts 24, Steelers 17. They got nothing to hang their hat on. They're like a headless horseman. They're fucked.
Oh, a headless horseman for the Steelers. I like that. I might steal that from you. All right. Yes. Heartless Perch. But what would it be without a heartless Perch? The show would be quite a different thing. We need that's the the character drama within the show here. You have FC with his passion and his heart, and Perch here to break all of that down and toss it to the side and give you some. He's a nattering nabob of negativism. That's really that's who Perch is. It's time for the feats of strength and our last word. I'm going to throw it to you first, Perch. So the first question I have for you for feats of strength is, what is the most difficult, strength requiring, and or badass thing that you've ever done in real life? And then give us the last word.
Yeah, I have no idea. I'll have to think about that. Last word. Man, just Merry Christmas, everybody. Happy New Year, and let's hope that the Steelers here in between the two actually come out and show some life and make us think that they have a chance of winning a Super Bowl. So I have no feat of strength to throw out there at the moment, but just everybody in listening land, happy holidays to you.
Well, you did actually get a shout out from Big Ben's account that you got not banned by the account that bans everybody. How about that? That is your feat of strength.
That is a very big feat of strength.
We'll take
it. Okay. All right, Jeremy, I'll throw it to you. Your feat of strength and your final words, if any.
Oh, feat of strength.
Or maybe you just have strong feet. That would work as well.
Definitely don't have strong feet. I'd say in college, I don't know how me and a buddy did this, but if you ever seen one of those old Coke machines that rolls down through and all,
sure.
I don't know how we did it, but we found a way to lift this thing up into my truck at the time, which was a good 3-4 feet off the ground. I don't know how we did it. I think we were still drunk from the night before, in our party. But we found a way to get it done, and they eventually turned that thing into a kegerator, but that was after I had left. So I didn't even get to see the benefits of that one.
Higher education. Yeah.
Yeah, gotta love it.
FC, how about you?
I also have no feat of strength, but my feat of strength is going to be Steelers are 6-0 this season when I did Bong Toast Story of the Podcast. So as we speak, there goes my feat of strength. I spoke through this doing gargantuan bong rip. I'm going to probably get bitched at in the morning. And my final thought is, no matter how annoying the talk gets during Christmas, they're your family, and you're going to have to deal with them in the future. So don't put on your pants and piss in the punch bowl, no matter what their politics are. Just deal with it, and know it'll be over.
Yeah, just know going in you're going to hate them and their politics, and just let it go. It's really okay. Yeah, I mean, obviously be safe, and that part of it I heartily concur with about the holidays and about getting together if you have to with people, if you must. I don't know, my feat of strength. You guys didn't have any feats of strength, so now I feel bad because no matter what I say, it's going to be like good. That's great. Good for you.
I would definitely say it was a feat of strength.
Hey, I just thought of a feat of strength. I'll jump in here. I've actually, during this podcast, I have been watching the Seinfeld Festivus episode and podcasting at the same time. Beat that, suckers.
It's pretty good. I guess my real feat of strength, better than anything else I can come up with right now, is I watched the first half of the Steelers game last week, and I did not turn my television on. That's remarkable, I thought. Yeah, exactly. Just a little – my last word is just a little note. I've been saying for a while now this season really reminded me of 2008. You got this great defense. You got the defensive player of the year probably on your team. And the offense struggled like hell that whole year. They had problems, early in the season. First game of the season, they looked great, and then it just sort of petered out and got worse. Ben was fighting some kind of injury that he denied. There's so many elements of it. They couldn't run in short yardage at all. They were the worst short yardage running team in the league. I would just like to point this out for we've said this last stretch of offense has been putrid and very, very difficult to watch and so on. The Steelers' first 3 games in December of 2008, their offense scored 13, 13, and 14. That, gentleman, is at least 3 points a game worse than what the Steelers have done this December. So take it for what it's worth. I guess that's my way of saying you can't necessarily count them out just because they've had a bad stretch on offense. They have had that before. And if you want to remember how that season ended, it ended with an offensive drive for the ages and a strip sack. But the point is, that offense proved to be good enough, even with a horrendous offensive line and everything else, not being able to run in short yardage, blah, blah, blah. So this one potentially could be too. If you're wishing for anything for Christmas, it's that we talk next week, safe and sound, and all of our families healthy. But we talk after a shocking Pittsburgh Steelers victory on Sunday against Indianapolis Colts. Gentlemen, FC, Perch, Smith and Smokin, who wasn't with us here in the regular part of the podcast, and for all of you listening at home, have a nice Christmas. If you're a person that celebrates Festivus, great. Happy to you. If you celebrate Kwanzaa, it's happening now. If you celebrate Hanukkah, it's over. Sorry. And let's all enjoy a celebration on Sunday together. That's for all of them and all of that. I'm your host, Bradshaw Ben, a.k.a. Accidental Zen on Twitter, and Will Massasack in real life saying, go get 'em, Steelers.
Go Stars.